I wanted to point out something I've been noticing surrounding the news on the Charlie Kirk assassination. Um, detecting patterns, right? But not in the not with the same meaning that people usually mean when they say detecting patterns, like as if there's some racial element to it. So, what I'm seeing is that commenters on videos are trying to push this narrative that the killing of Charlie Kirk was purely political, like is purely a political assassination, or it was a politically motivated killing, period, they'll say. It seems like they're trying to diminish the fact that Charlie Kirk's Christian beliefs were tied up in the things he said, that some of which offended the left. In fact, it's easy to say his very existence offended the left, because they had Charlie Kirk derangement syndrome just the same way they have Trump derangement syndrome. And even though Ivanka Trump is left of her father, politically, they suddenly didn't like Ivanka Trump simply because she had the Trump name, but, not until he started running for office. That's not reasoning, that's not rational, that's just feelings-based thinking. That's towing the line of your political party and downloading their talking points. So, I'm not Christian, and I do not believe in Christianity, but I acknowledge that Christianity had some good influence. I also acknowledge it had some bad influence. For one, Christianity's pretty bad about programming non-Jewish people to hate Jewish people, but putting that aside for the moment, Christianity did at least teach some semblance of morality to non-Jews. And really they were one of the few sources of morality in the West, because Christians were programmed not to listen to the Jewish people after Christianity was invented. So, and then people in the West, not many of them are getting morality from any of the other major world religions, which do hold sometimes some common moral teachings. So, but Charlie Kirk was undoubtedly a Christian. His beliefs were undoubtedly Christian. His beliefs were undoubtedly tied up in the things he said, which offended people on the left. Now, just so you have some idea where I'm coming from, I used to be a Mormon missionary, and when I was a Mormon missionary, I listened to this series of lectures by Dr. Hugh Nibley, who at the time I think worked for Brigham Young University, and he was a Mormon, but a lot of the things that Hugh Nibley said were so far above the heads of Mormons that he was definitely a different or what do you say, an odd egg. I don't know. He was almost like his education was almost like that of a Catholic churchman, but yet in a Mormon setting. He was like a big brain in a small brain community. I think intellectually sometimes he could run circles around the so-called general authorities, or the first presidency and the quorum of the 12 apostles and the 70 of the Mormon church, because he just knew so much more than they did. Anyway, here he's giving a lecture, and you can see this on YouTube. Time vindicates the prophets, and martyrs. Now, he's discussing the martyrdom, so-called, of the so-called prophet Joseph Smith, Jr. I do not believe that Joseph Smith, Jr. was a prophet. He was a false prophet. His so-called prophethood is revealed to be false just from Deuteronomy chapter 13 and Deuteronomy chapter 18. You don't need to talk about all the details of Joseph Smith's life to know that he was a false prophet. It's all right there in the Torah, where we get the whole idea of prophets in the first place. The 5 books of Moses, it's right there in Deuteronomy. But we're not here to talk about Mormonism. But here in this lecture, Dr. Hugh Nibley talks about martyrs, and he says that the primary definition of a martyr is a witness, in Christianity is a person who witnesses about Jesus. And now the details of Joseph Smith's death, they try to act like, he was just a lamb to the slaughter, while some accounts say that Joseph Smith was actually smuggled a pistol, and he did fire back at his attackers in the last moments of his life. So, not exactly a lamb to the slaughter. Then we have Charlie Kirk, who's just peacefully sitting there, speaking to people, inviting them to engage in conversation with him, to exchange ideas, and he's just shot right there, just speaking, just exercising his American freedom of speech, affirmed by the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment. And some, we are to believe, I guess, we assume that the suspect who shot him was also American, and yet that American trampled on his First Amendment rights. But not only that, in the process he martyred a Christian. I don't need the Pope's blessing to say that it is entirely proper from a Christian perspective to refer to Charlie Kirk as Saint Charlie Kirk henceforth, because the man lived peacefully, he didn't hate anyone, he wasn't a racist, he just had Christian beliefs, and he expressed them, and he inspired people to come to Christianity, and he was killed for it. That is the definition of a Christian martyr. But look out for these people who are commenting that Charlie Kirk's assassination was purely political. They are trying to diminish his status as a bona fide Christian martyr because they don't want people to become Christians as a result, because it is known as far back as the early church fathers of Christianity that the blood of martyrs is seed, meaning that new converts to Christianity grow up out of the blood spilled from a Christian martyr. So this is the situation that these idiot leftists have created. They think they got a win by killing Saint Charlie Kirk, when all they've done is plant a bunch of seed that's going to result in a resurgence of fundamentalist Christianity in America. And I'm not sure that's such a bad thing, because it will at least bring back some semblance of morality to America, as long as they don't get caught up in hating Jews in the process, because it just doesn't make any sense to hate Jews. If you believe that the sacrifice of Jesus was necessary for the salvation of mankind, and you also quite erroneously believe that Jews killed Christ, then doesn't it follow logically that Jews did you a favor? And yet they still hate Jews for being an instrumental part, allegedly, in what we are to believe is God's plan of salvation for mankind. Anyway, America right now is so morally off the path that a resurgence in Christianity, I think, could do some good for it. Because shit-hop music and what passes for entertainment on TV and in movies, where all of the commandments are broken, and somehow we take this for entertainment, that is not doing a very good job of raising up a moral generation in the United States of America. Charlie Kirk is clearly a Christian martyr, a person who was martyred for his Christian beliefs. Was there a political dimension to it? Sure, because, you know, there's politics that go on in America because people have a right to vote for their leaders. Christians in a country with a king may not have a right to vote for their leaders, so there might not have been a political dimension to it if it had happened there. But in America, if a person takes a political side, there is going to be a political dimension to it. But primarily, I think it's very fair to say and accurate that Christianity was central to Charlie Kirk, not politics. Because in Christianity, it's believed that God's kingdom is above all of the earthly kingdoms. Doesn't he say somewhere, my kingdom is not of this world or something? So, I would say that Charlie Kirk's Christianity supersedes his being an American citizen. And that's why this was an act of martyrdom more than it was a political assassination. And that's my external objective perspective on the matter.